Next up, we've got a fascinating story from Cloudflare. They're talking about it's the time to end CAPTCHA madness, and they're launching a new security key-based replacement.
Yep.
And I got to tell you, part of me was yes, and part of me was no with this. And I'll tell you why. Yeah. So first of all, I hate CAPTCHA. I think everybody hates CAPTCHAs, right?
Everybody hates CAPTCHA. Listen, I can tell you which ones are trucks and which ones are traffic lights. The fact that CAPTCHA doesn't know what they are isn't my fault. It's not my fault. Listen, there's that small, tiny little portion of the traffic light that's in that top right box, and then I click it, and you tell me I'm wrong. But no, that's a part of the traffic light.
That is part of the traffic light.
I'm saying. So.
By the way, I am still upset that the boat ones still do not have the picture of the boat that was stuck in the Suez Canal, jammed up in there. Like, how do you not include that as...
Or Bodie McBoatface. Like,
where's the Bodie
McBoatface picture?
Those two pictures are not a part of the selections, and that's just wrong. And that's yet another reason why I hate CAPTCHAs. But here's the thing that I'm concerned about with this Cloudflare thing. So basically what they're talking about is using your YubiKey or something like that to say, like, you've got to do a physical press on a device to prove that you're a human being to move you on past that. So that seems like it would be a lot easier. The thing that I'm concerned about is that this has the potential to uniquely identify you now and then be able to, for them, go like, oh, this is the same person on XYZ sites, right? So like, just as we're getting away, and we've been talking about this so much about Google and their third-party cookies and tracking you and Flock and getting rid of all of that stuff and everybody saying no to Flock, this on one side gets rid of a thing that's super annoying to all users, which is annoying CAPTCHAs. Yeah. But then potentially has the ability to open up and say like, oh, but now we can track you everywhere. And I don't know that that's a good trade-off, those two things, right?
That's a fair point. Though I am more comfortable with Cloudflare tracking me than Google tracking me at this particular moment in time. If I have to pick one, I'll pick Cloudflare.
Yeah, so, I'd agree with that too. Yeah.
Cloudflare is a pretty fantastic organization as a whole. So
they have definitely done a lot of things that fight for users and do the right thing for users. So
All right. Well, speaking of privacy and Google, Google will help you identify that suspicious mole or rash. And so they
by the way, this potentially should have been in Weird and Wacky, but we're keeping it here.
Yeah. I mean, to me, so I read this and I was like, oh, that's kind of terrifying. Like, you want me to take a picture? Because listen, there's never a suspicious mole or rash that's like on the back of your hand. Like, that's just never where they're at. Like, let's just be real. They're always in weird spots that you won't want circulating around the internet. Like, that's just been my personal experience. Maybe not everyone else's. I don't know.
So the advice is to zoom in and crop the photo. Zoom and crop.
Yeah. Okay. So I can see it, but it just feels like such a privacy issue to me that, like, I read this and I was like, I just kind of, the inner Sanjay in me just cringed. Like, I was just like, I don't think so.
What I got to say was fascinating is that each year they said Google gets 10 billion searches about skin conditions.
Whoa.
That's why they built this, because they're like, well, there's an audience.
Fair enough.
We can help them. And part of me is like, look, if this captures some skin conditions and gets people treatment sooner, like for cancer and things like that, it could save some lives. So
yeah, it's true. Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
It could be a good thing, but
so what I'm hearing you say,
I agree with you.
You're
it's
the
a little
one
weird.
advocating for uploading personal photos to Google. That's what I heard you say just now.
I don't think that's what I said. I think what I said was
living in, Sanjay.
I think what I said is I'm a fan of people catching cancer sooner. That said, maybe there needs to be some strict privacy regulation around this, or maybe this should be even falling under HIPAA, because you're talking about skin conditions. That's a medical condition, right? So maybe this should be controlled by HIPAA, and it shouldn't be, like the next thing that shows up on Flickr or whatever right after you take a picture of it.
So Sanjay, the inner troll in me just heard you say I'm a fan of people catching cancer, and I'm like you said sooner, but the inner troll is going to cut off that sooner.
Catching cancer, detecting cancer sooner so they can treat it and survive.
If you
not catching cancer.
If you see any angry people tweeting at you later, you'll know why. That's all I'm trying to say.
Let's be clear. You can't actually catch cancer. That's not a thing. Like you can catch a cold, you can't catch cancer.
Right,
so
right.
Catching cancer would mean detecting cancer so that, bad things don't happen. Next up, another story from Google. A little bit less creepy, but different, I guess. I don't know. Project Starline makes it feel like you're there together. So at Google, cool. This was actually pretty neat if you see the video.
Yeah.
But then I read another story about this and it's like, it kind of is not as great as what they kind of show it to be here. But basically what this is a high def display that makes it seem like the other person that's on the other side is actually physically there. There's a 3-dimensional representation so you can see kind of the shading and you could turn a little bit. But the story I read about it was a journalist actually tried it out and that it's apparently really easy to kind of lose the effect. If you shift just a little bit too much, it kind of loses the whole effect of it. But it's kind of neat, right? Like it's not just a flat like we're doing this right now on Zoom.
Yeah.
And it's a 2-dimensional kind of video, right? But this is not that. This is a 3-dimensional kind of representation.
Yeah. So I watched the video and essentially like you go and you sit in a booth and it's this really big screen in front of you. So it's almost like you're looking like through a window at the other person. I think that's the effect they're going for. And then the other person sits in a exact similar booth. And it's as if you're sitting, you're each sitting in a booth looking through a pane of glass at each other. So really my question is like, how do you decide which one of you is pretending to be in prison? Like that's kind of the same idea, right? It's the booth and you're sitting, you pick up the phone.
I mean, it was a good call to not have the phones that you had to pick up to talk to each other, because that would have completed the feeling there.
But in all seriousness, it did look really, really neat. The technology, the way they go about it, the way they do the 3D, impressions and all that sort of stuff, it looked really pretty impressive. So, I can see this actually being very useful potentially for especially for like work environments or possibly learning environments or things like that. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
Cisco a long time ago had and I think they still have this now, is they have these setups in rooms where they do multiple cameras and then there's a table that goes into the display. So it makes it look like a round table. Yeah. And so you'll have 3 people in another location and 3 people at your location and you come to this round table and you're all talking together. And they did it all using, I think, high-speed leased lines for internet. This was back in the day. I think maybe now you can use regular internet, but to have like the low latency and everything. Yeah. So, I used to a long time ago poo-poo kind of the video conference thing. And thanks to the pandemic and everything, I've realized like being able to see somebody and talk to them just adds that whole dimension, that whole quality that you just don't have on the phone, right? Like the facial expressions and the head nodding, like all those little like nonverbal cues really adds a lot to a conversation. And so something like this would be probably even better.
Or even the hand gestures, because like we use a few little hand gestures in recording Tech Talk. You also know where the breaks are and know how the handoffs go and that sort of stuff. And I mean, our listeners don't really get to see that, but nonetheless, it exists, and it's
good
really,
for us.
It really helps. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I think this is cool. I can see this going a long way in the future. I do think it needs a better name. Project Starline feels like a strange name for this particular project. I think whoever's naming Google projects must have gotten bored or something. Maybe they took a day off.
They probably just looked at that list of projects that Google ends up killing, and they're like, you know what? I don't need to like kill myself over the name of this thing because it might just end up.
They're gonna like reuse a logo from some other project, and
they'll be like, or could. It's been a while since we've used that one. We shut that down a while ago, so let's bring that one back.
Let's just bring it back.